Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, two former government officials take a stand against China.
The most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole must not go unpunished.
Among other things that we expect to result from this would be reparation.
A David and Goliath-like battle at the International Criminal Court.
If you look at the ICC Rome Statute, if the action happened within the territory of the state party and the respondent is a national of a non-state party, the ICC still has jurisdiction.
Accusing the Chinese leader of committing crimes against humanity.
Whether or not we have the jurisdiction, that's something else. Remember, China is not a member of the ICC. Dito, we were never.
But with the Philippines' withdrawal from the ICC and China's non-membership, can the International Tribunal act on the complaint? Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales joins us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Two former high government officials explained their complaint against Chinese President Xi Jinping before the International Criminal Court. They say they're hoping the communication will be recognized as a case and eventually bring the Chinese strongman behind bars. Our Rex Remitio tells us more.
Are you reminded of the case of David and Goliath?
This is how former Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales describes the communication she filed together with former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario on March 15th. That was 2 days before the withdrawal of the Philippines from the International Tribunal took effect. They are accusing the so-called world's most powerful man of committing crimes against humanity for implementing China's systematic plan to control South China Sea. In a statement, they say China's island building presents one of the most massive, near-permanent, and devastating destruction of the environment in humanity's history. They also say it adversely affects not only the lives of hundreds of thousands of Filipino fisher folk, but of future generations.
The grave consequences of these actions justify the court's involvement, as it affirms one of the principles of the Rome Statute, that the most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole must not go unpunished, and that effective prosecution must be ensured.
Their legal counsel, Anne-Marie Corominas, personally filed the communication, which was recognized by the ICC's prosecutor office. The ICC will then elevate the communication into a formal case if it finds enough merits, and by then, a preliminary investigation will follow. If they won the case, Del Rosario says President Xi could be arrested by any of the 123 ICC member states. The Chinese strongman could be imprisoned for life, or China would be compelled to pay penalties or compensate the affected fisherfolk.
It may or it may not work, but at the very least, if we explore it, we're delivering the message that we're not happy with the way we're being treated.
The two former officials also say there's no need for them to include President Duterte in the communication as an enabler of Xi Jinping's plan. They add that after all, there's a separate case against the Philippine president standing before the ICC. Rex Remitio, CNN, Philippines.
Vice President Leni Robredo praises the complaint filed against Chinese President Xi Jinping before the International Criminal Court. Robredo says the complaint filed by former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales shows that the country can still stand up to China. She said their courage served as a flicker of hope amid China's continued aggression in the West Philippine Sea. China has been militarizing islands and disrupting the livelihood of Filipino fishermen in the area. On March 15th, Del Rosario and Morales filed a communication against President Xi for crimes against humanity. However, Malacanang downplayed the complaint as a futile exercise, noting that China is not a party to the ICC. President Rodrigo Duterte is not worried the relations between the Philippines and China will be affected amid former government officials challenging China before the International Criminal Court. Mr. Duterte says he doubts whether ICC has jurisdiction over the communication.
The Philippines is a democratic country, and anybody can bring a suit against anybody. But whether or not it will be prosper, or whether or not we have the jurisdiction, that's something else.
Sir, good evening po.
Remember, China is not a member of the ICC.
Yes.
Dito, we were never.
Four senatorial candidates share their stand on the complaint against Chinese officials before the International Criminal Court. Get to know another set of candidates who joined CNN Philippines' 6th Senatorial Forum. Chrissy Di Matulak has the story.
What is your stand on the complaint against Chinese officials before the ICC? And is honesty still important in politics? These are some of the questions answered by four senatorial hopefuls during the 6th installment of the CNN Philippines Senatorial Forum. Sharif Albani and Melchor Chavez from the Labor Party of the Philippines joined Rodolfo Javellana Jr. and Lady Ann Sahidula from the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino in discussing key issues in the country today. Former broadcast journalist Melchor Chavez and former Governor Lady Ann Sahidula agreed with the move of two former Philippine officials in filing a case before the International Criminal Court against Chinese individuals for alleged injustices against Filipino fishermen in the South China Sea.
Unang-una, yung atin hong teritoryo ay sa Pilipino, hindi ho sa mga Chino. Kaya dapat lang talagang magiging kaaya-aya ito dahil unang-una dami hong para sa kagalingan ng atin hong mga kababayan, partikular ho ang ating mangingisda.
Dapat tutukan natin ito at hindi dapat ipaglaban o ipaghera, ngunit kausapin natin upang matauhan sila na hindi yun karapat dapat kunin nila dahil pag-aari ng Pilipinas. Dapat lang talaga panindigan natin.
Meanwhile, for RJ Javellana, the move was politically motivated, and he suggests that other countries who also claim ownership of the South China Sea be involved as well.
Ang dapat natin ay kunin natin ang lahat ng opinyon ng mga apektadong kalahok dito sa problema na ito. Andyan ang Vietnam, andyan ang China, andyan po yung mga kapitbahay natin. Umupo sa lamesa, pag-usapan yung mga resolusyon na ito at wag nang hayaan na may makialam pa na iba.
All candidates were asked if they agreed with Socio-Economic Secretary Ernesto Pernia's view that there should be a Department of Water. All candidates said yes. The senatorial hopefuls all agreed that water services should be nationalized.
Kasi ito lang bansa natin, nandito lahat ang kayamanan, nandito lahat ang mga tubig. Bakit nag-shortage ito? At sana, para sa akin, ang dapat natin gawin, maibalik ito sa pamahalaan.
Ganun din, dapat ibalik na talaga sa gobyerno ang ating tubig. Dahil nung lagi ang mahihirap, mabuti kung laging may kaya upang bumili ng tubig. Ngunit anong nangyari, mas tumaas pa ang rate ng tubig.
Both parties likewise agreed that honesty is still very important in today's politics. According to Javellana, it should be one of the main qualities of government officials.
Pinagkakatiwalaan po tayo ng taong bayan. Gagastusin po natin ang pondo ng taong bayan. Tayo po ang mag-iisip kung saan po ilalagak ang mga pondo na ito. Kaya dapat lamang na tapat itong maimplementa.
Actually, honesty, napakalalim na salita. Pero dagdagan natin, honesty is one of the basic requirements to be a good leader in our country with a moral and spiritual values.
If given the chance to be elected, Sahidula would focus more on livelihood programs in an attempt to fight corruption, especially in Mindanao. Her party mate Javellana said he would seek the renationalization of key industries as he advocates lower prices of goods and transportation. Meanwhile, Melchor Chavez said he will push for land reform, while Albani will push for the establishment of an ecumenical or interfaith department to address the issue of disunity in the country. Tougher questions on issues that matter to Filipinos will be posed to another set of Senate hopefuls as they head to the 2019 polls in the next installment of the Senatorial Forum on Sunday, March 31. Chrissy Di Matulak, CNN Philippines.
We'll be taking a break. When we return, former Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales, and hopefully later on the show, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario will join us live. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. The Justice Department believes that the filing of a communication at the International Criminal Court against Chinese President Xi Jinping is more of a political move rather than aiming for a legal victory. Foreign Affairs Chief Teddy Boy Locsin, on the other hand, says that anyone is welcome to file a complaint at the ICC, but reiterates the country's position that we are no longer part of it and a maritime body would be a better forum to address the fishing concerns. Two former high-ranking government officials filed a communication at the ICC seeking to hold Chinese President Xi Jinping and top Chinese officials accountable for environmental destruction and prohibiting Filipino fishermen in the disputed areas in the South China Sea. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have former Ombudsman Justice Conchita Carpio Morales. Justice, good morning. It's good to see you again.
Good morning, Pinky. Yes, the pleasure is mine hearing from you again.
Justice, some were quite surprised with the filing of the communication or complaint before the ICC. I wanted to find out from you, what was the turning point or possibly the catalyst that made you decide to file this case against Chinese President Xi Jinping?
As I had stated early on in a previous conference or interview, there was this hope that given the friendliness and accommodating stance of the Philippines to the Chinese people, they would reciprocate this by also being friendly and accommodating to us in light of the victory that we garnered from the International Criminal Court. But since the indications did not indicate otherwise, so the ambassador, Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and some of his friends thought that a communication should be sent to the ICC. Later, when they have almost made a decision that they would file the communication, they asked me if I was minded to join the group. And I said, let me just give this a thought. I want to reflect on it. And after reflecting on it for some time, I finally decided to join the ambassador because I was fully convinced in the merit of sending a communication to the office of the prosecutor.
So it's very clear this was initiated by the part on the side of the ambassador, and then you came in to join them. Justice, I know you said that eventually you were fully convinced to be part of this, but what were the initial apprehensions you had, if any?
I did not have any apprehension at all. I just wanted to give the matter a study.
Let's talk about the points that Malacanang is raising, Justice. They say this: you have the right to file it. You actually have the right to complain, but there are a number of problems. Number one, the Philippines is not a member of the ICC. There was no publication of the Rome Statute in the official gazette nor of public circulation. Hence, we were never a member of the ICC. Please respond to that, Justice.
Well, the issue of whether or not the joining by the Philippines of the Rome Statute is valid or not is pending before the Supreme Court. So we should take the presumption that it is valid, and until the Supreme Court says otherwise, then we believe that we are a member of the ICC.
Because you were once a member of the Supreme Court and now not. What are your thoughts on it? Can you give me your personal views on that? I asked a lawyer about this, Justice, and there is supposed to be this jurisprudence, Tolentino versus Executive Secretary, that says that publication was actually not listed as among the requirements for a treaty to become effective. Do you have any knowledge or information? Do you remember that, Justice?
Pinky, since the case is pending before the Supreme Court, the matter is sub judice. I'm not going to put in a cent's worth of my opinion.
All right. Point number two, raised by Malacanang. China is not a member of the ICC. This has been a comment over and over again. They're not a party to it.
what we should emphasize is that here we filed a communication to fault the President of China for criminal individual liability. For as long as the crime was committed within the territory of the Philippines, the one against whom we are asking the Office of the Prosecutor to examine need not belong to a nation which is a member of the Rome Statute.
I read your communication.
So that should, how's that?
Go ahead, Justice.
Well, that should dispute the opinion of some that since China is not a member of the ICC, the President cannot be faulted, if at all.
Justice, I read your communication, and a part of that, it says Article 13, Paragraph A or C. I want to put that up on the air. It says this: the court may exercise its jurisdiction if one or more of the following states are parties to this statute or have accepted the jurisdiction of the court in accordance with Paragraph 3. A, the state on the territory of which the conduct in question occurred. That is, I guess, the basis that you are talking about, Justice, that China may not be a member, but the alleged crime was committed in Philippine territory, which was a party to the Rome Statute.
That's right. The Philippines, which initiated the communication, is a member of the ICC, of the Rome Statute, and therefore, irrespective of whether the person against whom the communication is directed is or belongs to a country which is not a member of the Rome Statute, is immaterial.
Justice, I wanted to ask you, but it did not specifically mention in the Rome Statute, I also tried to read that, that it never said that a non-member can be brought to court or be brought to explain any alleged violations. It never said, there was nothing in the Rome Statute that actually explicitly said that that can be done.
Yes, a person who is not a member of the Rome Statute can be subject of communication. It does not say that since the country to which the person belongs is not a member of the Rome Statute, that you cannot file a communication for the purpose of conducting an examination by the Office of the Prosecutor.
All right, Justice, we'll be taking a short break. Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario will also be joining us after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guests today, former Ombudsman Justice Conchita Carpio Morales, and now joining us also former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario. Justice, again, good morning to you, and Secretary Del Rosario, welcome to the show. Secretary, let me start with you. I just want to continue on my questioning, the last question I asked Justice Conchita Carpio Morales about China not being a member of the ICC. They're not a party to the ICC, and hence some are saying that you cannot file a complaint before China.
I think very clearly on the basis of our knowledge, if China had committed a crime in the Philippines and the time the crime was committed was during the effectivity of the Philippines being a state party, then that's all that's needed.
Secretary Justice, may I simplify if it's correct in Filipino? Nangyari kasi sa teritoryo ng Pilipinas at ang Pilipinas is supposed to be part of the Rome, is a state party to the Rome Statute. Would that be a correct description?
Yes, yes. Because at the time we filed our communication. That was the second to the last day of the withdrawal of the Philippines as a state party.
The fact is, it was filed March 15, and we left became a non-party of the Rome Statute and the ICC on March 17. Correct, Secretary? That's 2 days after. Just want to go back to a question I asked Justice Carpio Morales a while ago. Was asking her what was the catalyst, what was the turning point of having to file this communication or this complaint before the ICC. What was it for you, Secretary? What made you finally decide to do this?
Well, I think the problem at hand was the condition of our fishermen. Our estimate is that there are over 300,000 fishermen that have had their livelihood affected, plus the fact that the food security was a factor. And so we felt that we should try to help our poor people.
Secretary Justice, how do you feel that former officials of government had to file this on behalf of the Filipino fishermen and not members of the government? Justice, may I start with you, please?
Well, you know, in our case. We discussed many topics, and this was a topic that we thought was of primary concern, because if we're talking about the matter of helping our people, the problem was diverse. It was near permanent, and it was, of course, a massive problem.
Justice?
And I think just to add to that, if I may, if with the arbitral tribunal having been shelved, I think the problem becomes even it exacerbates itself because of the aspect of helplessness and hopelessness.
Justice Carpio Morales, ma'am.
Yes, it does not have to take the government to be able to file a communication to the ICC, to the office of the prosecutor. Any person, for that matter, can file a communication to the office of the prosecutor and request for an examination over a matter that is of general concern. Now, even the prosecutor can motu proprio. In other words, the prosecutor does not have to await a request from any country for her to conduct an examination of a matter that could fall within the jurisdiction of the ICC.
I did read that part, Justice, within the Rome Statute, that the prosecutor can motu proprio look into this case. Another question here is, another point that is being raised is the allegation of environmental damage that apparently does not fall within the jurisdiction of the ICC. Why? It includes such crimes as murder, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. However, what you're using here on environmental damage, from my understanding, ladies and gentlemen, is the crime against humanity. Could you please expound? Let's start with Justice Carpio Morales.
The crimes against humanity could be committed by any of the means that are allowed under the ICC, which means it could involve the devastation of maritime areas. It could deprive on a massive scale and widespread scale the livelihood of the fishermen, among other marginalized people. And so it is the means and the result that we are after. In other words, if it results in environmental damage, that could probably fall under the crime against humanity.
Secretary Del Rosario, sir.
Yes. You want a similar response from me?
Well,
Vicky?
let's do a follow-up on that. When you look at the crimes against humanity, it means any of the following. Let's put that up on air. It could be murder, extermination, enslavement. There's a lot that actually falls under the crimes against humanity. But what you used in your communication was letter H and letter K. Letter H is persecution against any identifiable group or collectively on political, racial, national, ethnic, as identified in paragraph 3 or other grounds that are recognized as impermissible under international law. Could you help us understand that, Secretary?
Well, I'm not sure that I can explain all of that, but I did emphasize that crimes against humanity is one of the crimes that is defined under the ICC, and in our view, the fact that there was massive damage, that there was near permanent injury, and there was also a loss of livelihood, and as well there was harm to terms of the in terms of food security was also affected. So there doesn't seem to be a response on the part of either the Philippines or China in terms of how the plight of our poor people who are fishermen could be addressed. So we felt that crimes against humanity, although this would be a new approach, we think that and we hope that this route will result in success for us.
I did read that part, Secretary and Justice, that this is unique. This is a unique case that you filed. I want to bring in a statement from government. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara, he's saying that this is more of a political statement rather than a legal action, and is intended to achieve a political victory rather than a legal one. Any one of you care to comment on that, please?
May I?
We are not politicians. We don't intend to drag in politics in our movement, in our action. This is not a political move. It is a move undertaken by private citizens, by individuals who are minded to protect our marginalized fishermen. As I earlier said, any person, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can send a communication to the Office of the Prosecutor to request the prosecutor to conduct an examination of the matters brought to the office for purposes of seeing to it that the crime which we believe has been committed will be given due course.
Secretary, you'd like to add to that?
Well, it's clear that we're a very small group. I think you can count the members in the fingers of your one hand. And we have purposely avoided politicians from becoming members of our group because we didn't want to politicize the effort that we are undertaking to help our people.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guests today, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Justice Conchita Carpio Morales. Also a statement from the DFA Secretary Locsin, saying this: "It's a free country. Everyone is free to file anything, even for a vacation leave, but we are well out of the ICC. Perhaps a better forum would be some maritime or fishery body of which we are still a member." Secretary Del Rosario, please respond to that.
I think we have to respect the judgment of our incumbent secretary. So I refuse to comment. He is pursuing what he thinks is best for the Philippines.
Justice Carpio, is Secretary Locsin pursuing what is best for the country?
Let me first comment on his statement that the Philippines is not a member of the Rome Statute. Remember, we filed the communication 2 days before the effectivity of the withdrawal by the Philippines of its membership in the ICC. So what counts is that at the time we filed the communication, it was still within the time that the Philippines was a member of the Rome Statute. Now, since there is a pending petition before the Supreme Court assailing the withdrawal by the President of its membership of the Roman Statute, without the concurrence of Congress, it would not be correct to say that we are no longer a member. But as I said, at all events, we filed the communication before the effectivity of the withdrawal.
2 days before the withdrawal. China says, Justice and Secretary, it's going to ignore the ICC communication, while the official position of the Philippines is that we never became a party to the Rome Statute. The question, I guess, is how do you possibly see some sort of cooperation from the two countries should the ICC decide to launch a full-blown investigation?
I think that there is a growing similarity in terms of China's behavior in response to being brought to an international court. I think in the arbitral tribunal, they were also quite silent, taking the position that what we are doing will not work.
Justice?
Yes, if China does not care to comment on the communication in the event that the Office of the Prosecutor finds merits in asking the Chinese to, the President of China to comment thereon, that's their judgment. In other words, if the Office of the Prosecutor believes that the Chinese President should answer, but he does not answer, then he's deemed to have waived answering the same if the order is for him to answer.
But if
so it would not be, of course, surprising if the President does not answer the communication in light of the insistence and the actual situation that indeed China is not a member of the Rome Statute. But again, let me emphasize, you don't have to be a country, a national of a country which is a member of the Rome Statute in order to be hailed to the ICC. What counts is that the crime is committed within the territory of a member country,
which is the Philippines, in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea. Go ahead, Secretary, please.
If I may add, please. I think in the past there has been a view which had been expressed rather loosely that only small countries are subject to international law. I think even then we took the view that that was incorrect, and at the end of the day, we proved our point.
Another question that came out on social media, Justice and Secretary, is that why did you not take this or file this before a local court first? Because it also says in the Rome Statute that you can take it to the ICC if a local court is unwilling or unable to prosecute.
I think the reason we didn't take it to a local court is because we saw that the government was unmoving in respect of this issue. And we also saw that the ICC was on the verge of being withdrawn from by the Philippines. So we needed to act quickly, and we chose to go with ICC.
Justice, would you like to add to that?
Pinky, if you're referring to the complementary
Yes, ma'am.
doctrine, which says that the ICC would not take jurisdiction over a case between two countries if the local or domestic country is doing something to address the matter, let me invite your attention to the fact that there seems to be no action on the part of the Philippines to consider filing a criminal case against the President of China. At all events, remember that even if a domestic court files a case against a foreign country or its inhabitants, the filing of the case or the proceedings have to be genuine. We don't see any such move.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guests today, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Justice Conchita Carpio Morales. Maybe it's best to ask this to you, Justice. Has there been a similar complaint in the past? Would you be able to educate us regarding this? Anything that comes to mind?
Excuse me, I did not get your question right.
Justice, was there any similar complaint lodged before the ICC in the past that you would know of?
If you're referring to a complaint against an individual, I particularly recall the case against the President of Sudan and also the case against Gaddafi. Unfortunately, the case of Gaddafi had to be dismissed because of death.
Has there been any update from
In other words, the filing of a
Go ahead, Justice.
In other words, the filing of a communication against an individual is not novel. It's been there before.
Has there been...
Now, you were saying about update?
Yes, has there been an update on the ICC regarding this complaint or this communication?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to divulge the update, and at all events, maybe we can address that before the ICC.
Okay, you are getting, both sides. You're being criticized, you're being praised for this complaint before the ICC. Some are saying, so much courage from the two former officials of government. There is a petition, an online petition right now. I think it has there have been 17,000 signatures from last count. It's a statement of support for Secretary Albert Del Rosario and Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales. They're urging the public to sign this. Have you heard of this, Secretary, Justice?
Yes, we're most grateful for that support.
Yes, we have heard of it, and we would like to thank those who are manifesting their support in our cause.
Secretary Del Rosario said it may or may not work, but delivering the message that we're not happy with the way we're being treated. If it doesn't work, as Secretary Del Rosario, at the very least, what will this achieve?
I think if it doesn't work, we will at least have brought to the fore the abuses that are being endured by our people, for which we should be doing something.
Justice Carpio Morales called this, I think one of your statements was, this is a David and Goliath story. Justice, for you, if it doesn't work, what kind of message do you want to send out? What can this accomplish?
Pinky, I would like to know the ground why it wouldn't work. If it doesn't work because there is insufficient evidence and the prosecutor dismisses the case, then the crime against which the president et al. Of China is being lodged is a continuing crime. So that does not restrain us from filing a manifestation or communication to which we would attach additional evidence.
Last words, Secretary Albert Del Rosario.
Well, we are very hopeful that we can provide constructive assistance to our poor fishermen and also to the fishermen of other nations in the region. And we hope that we can continue to receive the support of our people, not only our people in the private sector, but hopefully it is our hope that the government will also take steps to help.
Justice Carpio, it's been 8 months. Has it been 8 months since your retirement?
So I retired late July.
July 2018.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, last words, Justice.
Last word about what? About this?
Yes, what would you like to tell the Filipino people?
Well, first we'd like to thank those who are supportive of our cause, not to give up, to have faith in the merits of the communication that we sent, and to pray for our marginalized fishermen and for those who are similarly situated. Because if no one takes the cudgels for them, who will? We cannot be just being trampled upon. We have to assert our rights, including filing a communication before the ICC for the consideration of whether or not the President of China et al. Are individually criminally liable.
Thank you, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario and former Ombudsman Justice Conchita Carpio Morales. Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.